Hi, I'm John McLenathan, Deputy President of Ulster Farmers Union, and I'm down here today with Laura from the Rivers Trust on a dairy farm outside Dundrum with the magnificent Mourne Mountains behind us. And we're going to take a walk around the farmyard and just see what we can all do at a very practical level on our farms to improve water quality.
So John, how often should a farmer be checking his slurry tanks or channels?
Yeah, on a weekly basis really, Laura, especially channels because they're more likely to get blocked up quicker, and especially as we move through the season, as we get towards the end of the close period, we know those tanks are filling up towards the end of the winter. You really want to be keeping a close eye on them. Would you check your tank levels and freeboard? Yeah, freeboard is particularly as we get towards the end of the winter period and the housing period, when we know we're getting close to that limit. It's important the farmer has an idea of what's there, and if necessary, if he has other tanks he can perhaps move slurry to if it's during the close period and he can't spread it, so he can do it, or weather conditions don't permit him to, as this year has been particularly difficult. So it's useful to have that additional storage somewhere else where he can manage the freeboard in a tank like this.
Have you ever had any issues with cracks or leaks in your slurry tanks?
Yeah, I mean, this is something farmers get worried about, because these tanks are built to a very high engineered specification. But it is still important that farmers are checking them regularly in case there are any leaks coming out of them.
And John, tell me, has the recent rainfall that we've been seeing in Northern Ireland having an effect on the farmer, where maybe the yard water is entering into the slurry tanks and putting them under extra pressure for capacity?
Undoubtedly, Lauren, we've seen that this year in particular with a very, very wet February, and we've seen how that has put pressure on tanks which were full at that stage anyway, and that additional rainwater that we got, and some of it in many cases inevitably finding its way into slurry tanks and creating a far, far bigger problem for farmers. And that's all the more reason why farmers need to be managing that clean water and keeping it separate and away from their dirty water.
John, would it be common for farmers to see muddy water leaving the fields after heavy rainfall events?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it was common, but it can happen. What we're talking about is sort of cross overland flow, and if there's been bare soil, so perhaps fields have been ploughed in the autumn time and have been left bare, or harvested in the autumn time and left bare, there is that potential, especially on slopes. When we have a good grass cover like we're seeing here, the risk is very, very minimal.
John, would farmers find that areas such as laneways, gateways and drinking and feeding areas would be more likely to get poached during heavy rainfall events? And what could you suggest to farmers to alleviate that problem?
Yeah, absolutely. In wet conditions, whether it's machinery or livestock, and there's lots of traffic in and out or around the one area, there is that potential for poaching, and I suppose we'd be advising farmers to avoid that as much as possible, maybe to move feeders if that's where the problem's coming from, or to use different gates if that's where the issue's coming from in terms of going in and out. But certainly any time we're turning up the soil, or turning up the grass and having bare soil visible, that increases the risk of overland flow. And the big risk to the farmer is that top millimetres of the soil is the most productive part of his farm, and he doesn't want to be losing it.
Should farmers be aware of where runoff is likely to collect on their farms?
Yeah, well, absolutely, and sometimes it's very obvious in a field like this where we can see there's a slope and a hollow at the bottom of it, and we know that's where there's going to be that collection. The other great tool that we have now available to farmers is, after the Soil Nutrient Health Scheme, we have not just a soil analysis but also a LiDAR map which plots where those flows of water will be, and that's a great asset to the farmer in terms of how you can manage that and how you can avoid any potential risk of that across land flow and those nutrients escaping into a watercourse.
And John, would you recommend the use of buffer strips and hedgerows at watercourses to help reduce the chance of that runoff getting into the water?
Yeah, focused use of buffer strips, riparian zones or hedgerows can be really effective as providing that gap between the field and the watercourse. Not only will they make an actual physical barrier to that crossland flow, but also because of the plants and the hedges and whatever else, they will actually absorb a lot of those nutrients before they get a chance to get to the watercourse. So used correctly, they can be really effective.
So John, we're here in the field and we've got a watercourse here. I know a lot of farmers would maybe have their animals entering the watercourse for drinking water. Do you think there's any potential issues with that for the livestock and for the environment?
Yeah, we're down here beside a stream, and traditionally farmers would have allowed their livestock access to the streams for drinking water. That does create a few issues, and I suppose farmers need to be aware of those. It can cause a bit of bank erosion, which cuts into the field, which can create a problem for the farmer as the field gets smaller. Also because if the livestock are walking into the river, they are taking the soil with them into the river. Perhaps they're defecating in the river. They can be causing pollution issues potentially from that. So generally speaking, we like to advise farmers to look at alternatives to having cattle drinking directly from streams, and there are many alternatives out there that they can look at.
Thanks very much for your time today, John, for taking us around the farm and showing us the practical solutions to improving water quality. It's been great to hear your thoughts and experience, so thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Laura. And this is really what the Water Project is all about. It's about working with farmers, looking at very, very simple, sometimes very simple solutions, common sense solutions, little things which can make a big difference in order to protect the farmer and also to protect water quality. And we would really encourage farmers to get involved with this project, working with ourselves and yourselves in order to bring those benefits, which are not just to them, but also to wider society as well.
Perfect. Shall we go and get a drink?
Let's go up Sleeve to Honour. Come on.